We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Monday. We're starting out another week, and we're starting it out the right way. We've got two guests on today, and this has been in the works for a little bit, but I'm glad we've got it set up. We've got essentially three old guys with very little hair going to talk some shit about some shit. We have Jace, who's a regular on the program. He's from Texas. We've got Eric, who's in Iowa. He's on regularly and he has his own TikToks. You presumably follow him there. And I'm in Minnesota. This is one of the rare times where we're all in the same time zone. So I'm sitting here at 9:10 in the evening in Minnesota. So are you motherfuckers. It's 9:10 where you are too. So that's good news. That makes everything easier. Um, I have a question. During the weekends, do you guys get away from the whole politics thing to give yourself a rest, or do you stay focused like you do during the week?
I do. I
Um,
try to like kind of shut Facebook down and not so much TikTok. TikTok's about the one I go to, but even Instagram is kind of guy. If I want to read anything, I'll check Threads or I'll check Blue Sky. But yeah, I kind of do it. I don't watch the news anymore. The only thing I watch is local news, but I try to, just get away from it for a little bit. But of course, I catch the Rational Boomer and also yours, Eric. I watch those there. I do a little thing that says friends, I'm both friends with y'all, so I'll check y'all stuff out. But yeah, here and there, I try to get away from it.
How about you, Eric? You're pretty intense. You're pretty detailed. You know this shit inside out. Are you on this all the time, every day during the weekend?
yeah, I try to keep up on it. Maybe I'm not as up on the new stuff over the weekend. Sometimes I'll use it to catch up on anything I might have missed through the rest of the week. But I do try to just stay on top of it every day because with this administration, there doesn't seem to be a break. They're
Mm.
doing something dumb every single day because they're always trying to distract from the dumb shit they did the day before.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing I said on a TikTok recently. Um, People have asked me, "You're out there every day," and so is Eric. You're out there every day talking shit. How do you do that? Well, it's not too hard when there's new goofy shit coming out every day. You got one thing, you can talk for an hour on that, then something else happens, and then something else happens. And that's kind of what we're looking at in this program too. There's at least 8 or 9 different things that we can talk about that I didn't talk about in the last podcast a day ago.
Yeah, the thing about this administration is I think it's almost scary and it's almost a bad thing because people are so numb to everything that it's like I think Trump gets away with a lot more shit because people are just burned out on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and I think that's what he's doing, like the chat gate, we have that happen. But fuck, we have this other thing happen here. So it's you can't fucking keep up. And what's compliant with it is the mainstream media is because they take everything Trump says to gospel. He comes out there and says, "Oh, we got some tariffs, negotiated and all this stuff like that." Media bites into it. They said, "Oh yeah," but if this would have been fucking Biden or Kamala, they question everything. It's like Trump gets the benefit of the doubt, but like Democrats don't. I mean, it's totally, and I know it's because the oligarchs run the media, but when I hear people talk, when I hear people mention the liberal media, which in Texas I do hear that sometimes. I mean, I'm like, fucking where? Where is the liberal media? I mean, give me some of that
Yeah.
fucking liberal socialistic news, man. But the media is just they're such a joke. I don't even get how people still watch them.
Yeah, with this administration, they're constantly doing stuff to distract from the things that are going on, trying to manufacture wins, trying to make it look like they're actually having some kind of accomplishment. And there's so much. Now, I don't know if it's intentionally trying to flood the zone or if it's just the narcissist personality of Donald Trump just
Yeah.
trying to stay ahead of it, trying to keep his ego up, trying to maintain that image of the tough guy, the strong guy, the powerful guy. And he's struggling to keep all of the balls in the air while juggling, and they keep throwing more at him. It's going to come crashing down. He is not going to make it, I don't think, to the end of the 4 years without completely losing whatever facade he's been able to maintain. And those of us of the rational mind already see through the bullshit.
Mhm.
But I think by the end of it, even his base, at least a chunk of them, are going to be going, "What the fuck?"
No, I always I get annoyed when I always hear about Donald Trump and his plan, flood the zone, like Steve Bannon said. I don't see this as a plan. I know malignant narcissists, and this is what happens. They play their game, and as long as they're getting by, everything's going smoothly. But when it starts to go bad, they start pulling shit out of their ass and throwing it against the wall. And like Eric said, it becomes insurmountable, and they can't continue to juggle it. That brings me to, I won't say it's the biggest news story because we don't know much about it, but there's so many big news stories that we can talk about. But this is the one with China. Donald Trump's been taking a lot of heat with the China tariffs because what's going to happen to this country is imminent. Maybe this week, next week, there's going to be some serious impact on retail and people's jobs and that sort of thing. Donald Trump said that he had some people talking to China and it was really good and it sounded like we might have a deal. But here's the thing, we know this meeting was not to negotiate the deal. This meeting was to negotiate how to have a meeting about negotiating the deal. It was very preliminary. And whatever Donald Trump said, whatever the Republicans said, it really doesn't matter because China came out and said, yeah, there wasn't really any substance of the conversation. It was pretty vague. There was no deliverables. So people are all excited, maybe even the stock market excited about Donald Trump. Oh, we're going to have a deal with China. He's a pathological liar. Why do I have to keep reminding fucks about this? He's not telling the truth.
Because the media reports it as truth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's market manipulation. I mean, it's just like because every time you
Oh,
say
yeah.
something positive, it goes back up. And I mean, God, this been Joe Biden, they'd be losing their fucking shit over it. I mean, and I would too, because I would,
Yeah.
if a Democrat was doing this, I'd be as pissed off as what's going on here. But how
Well,
bad is it that, we're three red-blooded American males, eat meat for breakfast. We fucking believe China above our own fucking president. That's how bad things have gotten. I
yeah.
mean, it's like it's like goddamn. How I mean, and I have people down here that are still MAGA. They dislike there's and Eric, I don't know how it is up there, but down here, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily lost a lot of support because there are people who go to his grave defending him. I mean, we've seen it in Congress, and his followers are like that too. But god dang, I mean, I don't know if a nuclear warhead going off. I mean, it's like, see, and it's we can own the fucking libs. I mean, there's just too much stupid out there. But I'm optimistic, so because he ain't gonna be able to keep up the juggling act. I agree with both of y'all on that.
Well, as far as losing support around here, I know he's lost some. I've talked about it on this show before. There's a guy a couple blocks down. He was flying big Trump flags every day, the FJB flags, uh, Trump 2024, all of that. And then he had a tree that he cut off about 6 foot up, painted red, carved Trump into the tree last year or 2 years ago, something like that. No new paint on it. He's just letting it go. It's still sitting there, but he hasn't kept up on it. I haven't seen the flags in his yard. The guy behind me doesn't fly his Trump flags, but I can still see him in his garage sometimes, but he doesn't have them up nearly even as often in his garage as he did going up to the election. Uh, I don't see nearly the Trump hats that I did going into 2020 into that election. Um, I think for at least some of them, the paint in the facades coming off, they're starting to wake up a little bit as these things are starting to hurry. As far as this trade deal with China, it is sad that we believe China more than we do Donald Trump. And of course, there's no deal. But Donald Trump needs you to believe there's a deal. And all he said, well, we got a deal. Things are going to be better. Even if they're not, at least a certain or a certain amount of his followers are going to repeat that, oh, yeah, we had a deal with China. Even as they watch prices rise, they will blame anybody but Donald Trump, anybody but China, and they'll stare at empty shelves and going, "Oh yeah, Donald Trump's got this all figured out. It's coming. Just wait."
But I think that's what people have to understand. Donald Trump, the damage from these tariffs is imminent. I mean, soon. We know ships aren't coming to America anymore. And that poses a lot of problems to a lot of businesses and a lot of people in this country. And he's looking for a way to blame somebody. And so when this all hits, instead of saying it was my fuck up, which it was, he can say, well, I cut the deal with China. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. We should go to war with them or something. You know, he's looking for a way to blame somebody else because he sees what's coming. The people around him are smart enough to say, this is pretty fucked up, dude, and there's not much you can do about it. Even if they had a deal today, it's going to take 3 months to fix the what he fucked up already. We are still going to suffer and we're going to still struggle. And he will want to blame it on somebody else.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there's I mean, it'll be like I mean, he's already tried to blame Biden for stuff, but I tell you what's going to happen is that he's going to probably they're probably going to be eventually a deal done. I mean, I don't think it'll be any of his doing. It'll be probably he's already kind of, said that he's given the task to what's his guy that's over there negotiating? I forget his name. And
Then
yeah, he said he's handling it. What do y'all want to make a bet that we get deals done, but we're in fucking worse shape than we were before? I mean, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
he's going to be so damn desperate to freaking make a deal that he's going to call it the greatest deal since, Jesus made Lazarus rise from the dead. I mean, he's gonna spin it. They're going to believe it. And we're going to be fucking, I mean, what's going to happen? We'll eventually get that stuff back, but it's going to be fucking 10, 20 times higher than it was before. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
if we do get to going back, all this shit would be for nothing. All this shit would be for nothing. People losing their fucking jobs, people losing their 401k. I mean, for nothing. Just because Trump could, try to prove his dick's bigger than the guy in China's. Come on. It's just a dick, comparing contest to Trump. That's all it is. I mean, it's just, art of the fucking deal, my ass. Bullshit.
And,
yeah.
and based on what the stripper who sued him said, there's no risk of him having the bigger dick. I'm just saying.
Stormy down, yeah, stormy down. Yeah, true, true.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, this is going to get bad. I talked about it, I think, the last time I was on with TJ, that what a lot of people don't realize is how the supply chain works for a lot of these companies. Is that the manufacturers expect the warehouses here in the United States to hold a certain amount of product, constantly waiting for resupply. Well, if we're not getting the resupply, those warehouses are going to eventually run dry.
Yep.
And then even when we do get product back, they're not going to have enough to get everybody everything that they're trying to order. It's going to be
Right.
limited. It's going to be, instead of getting 10 cases, you might get two. That's why we were out of toilet paper in 2020 for months, or you could only get certain brands. You could only buy certain quantities. I know they did that here in town where you could go in, you could only get like it was 1 or 2 packs a day, and it was like one option. You got whatever showed up that day, and that was it. Um, and that's what we're going to see with some of this other supply chain stuff.
Yeah, some of those toilet papers when things were scarce. See, the thing about it is you have to understand too. I don't think the supply chain technically is the problem with toilet paper because most of that is produced here in the country. What happens is dumb fucks get scared and they hoard this toilet paper. They buy it by the fucking pallets because they don't want to be without toilet paper. Then we end up buying toilet paper that gives us slivers in our ass because this isn't properly processed. It's fucking half
Yep.
wood pulp. Um, but you're absolutely right. I mean, people have to understand for a ship to leave China to get to California, that's a couple weeks. It's not like
Minimum.
you throw it on a plane and we'll have it here tomorrow. You got to get it from China and go through the whole process and get it here. And you throw one little hitch in it and it disturbs everything and it's hard to get it back. We saw that with COVID. Even after COVID was over, it didn't jump back up because we had to wind back up to where we were, and that took some time. And it will take. It's inevitable now because that shortage, that supply chain break, is there. Nothing Donald Trump can do to fix that. That's happening.
Yeah. And I had somebody in my comment section talking about they have a small business and they have product sitting in China that they're paying storage on
Yeah.
because they can't afford to bring it in to this country with the 145% tariff, pay that, and still try to sell it at the new price with the 145% tariff. They go, we'd go broke. It is
Right.
cheaper and cost effective for us right now to just sit on the merchandise and pay a minor storage fee in China, waiting for this to resolve. So that's what they're doing. Um, and
But in
beyond
the
that,
process, you can't do any business. You can't
right,
make any money because your products come from China.
right. And then they're stuck waiting, and everything's backlogged. It doesn't, it doesn't help. And as we talked about, I think again with I was on with TJ, a lot of the stuff is already meant to be in transit. You know, stuff for Christmas should be on those container ships already, if not now, in the next month or so, getting
Right.
moved, and products should be moving for Christmas. Christmas tree, or the artificial trees, the ornaments, the toys, the whatever that you're going to want to start seeing popping up here by September, early October. A lot of places already have their Christmas decorations out. That stuff needs to be in their warehouses by July and moving around the country. Donald Trump has already fucked Christmas for 2025, and he doesn't even know it.
Well, I think also too, what people don't realize too is that a lot of the arrangements and partnerships we had are gone because
Yeah.
China's already made like I know for Texas is going to suffer because they made Texas beef. They made with Australia, I guess, for there because if you look at the terrain of Australia, it's pretty much like Texas, a lot of just dirt and brush. So a lot of that stuff, those businesses aren't going to come back because once the cargo ships start going, there's going to be somebody else that may be ordering from China or shipping to China or vice versa. So, I mean, a lot, whatever, our previous, presidents and treaties have made, look what, God, probably shit that went back to Nixon's probably going to be destroyed because of his egotism. I mean, it's just fucked up. It's just in the name of, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that we're going to get back together and on stuff, but I mean, I think it's going to take years to, even get us back to normal because like a lot of those partnerships, I mean, who fucking starts a war with your closest ally to you in
Well,
Canada?
if you want to know
Who
how this
does
is
that?
going to end up, all you have to do is go look at the first term when he put tariffs on China and they
Yep.
quit buying soybeans. Well, when the tariffs went away, they started buying soybeans again, but only half as much as before those tariffs. So those farmers not only got their ass kicked because nobody was buying them, when they finally did get it back, it was only half as good as what it was before. And that's what's going to happen here, like Eric points out. People, China was smart. After they went through it the first time, they said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So they made some other alternative options prior to this whole situation. And if they can sell or buy goods from somebody else, they're going to make that choice over America. And people say, why would they do that? We're America. Well, here's the problem with negotiating with Donald Trump. You don't know what he's telling you, if it's true or if it's going to happen or it's going to change. And that's the common attitude, I think, with all countries around the world. How do we negotiate with a guy when we don't know really what he's going to do and we can't trust him?
It depends on his mood. He wakes up in a bad mood, he's gonna piss on you, and piss on
Right.
you. I mean, why deal with that? I mean, it's kind of like us, talking about, kind of tuning out. I mean, you're kind of stuck. We're stuck with him, and with Trump because he won the election. So we kind of tune out. Other countries are doing that too. It's like God, it's just it's I'd rather deal with Australia than deal with fucking United States. And there
Yeah,
was a
absolutely.
study. I'm sure every local newscast is doing this, but San Antonio is going to really suffer because they were big partners with Canada, and they actually did some. Our mayor has gone to China and Japan, but it's like there's like no safe ally that
No.
he hasn't pissed off. It's Canada, it's Mexico. I remember I'm old enough to remember back when it was just Mexico and they were all the bad people. And now it's Canada, and now it's everywhere else. He's a fucking toddler, and he's throwing a fit because he's not getting his thing. his way. But now he's starting to say, well, he's starting to realize, and I tell people that all the time. I voted for him. Day one, I was told day one, day one, day one, day one, day one. And I
No,
fucking throw it at him because that's his, and when people can say, well, that's fucking stupid to say. Yeah, it is stupid. That's the point.
yeah,
Oh yeah, his supporters will walk right into the point and not realize
Yeah.
that they've walked right into the point. Um, he said all this stuff was going to happen on day one. He was going to be able to end the Russia-Ukraine war, lower prices day one. Then he comes out and says, well, it's going to be a little harder than that just to do it day one. Well, no shit. Maybe it's because you don't know what you were doing. We were much better off with Joe Biden, and would have been way better off with Kamala Harris. Um, and we would have been heading toward economic recovery. But like we've said, he's a toddler. He throws a temper tantrum one day, decides that he's not going to be able to, tolerate this country or that country from some perceived slight, or comes up with a harebrained idea because he watched the movie The Rock and he wants to reopen Alcatraz, or whatever the case it is that day. You can't negotiate with that. You can't deal with that. And even some of these countries are going, well, we negotiated with you during your last term. Look at Mexico and Canada. He renegotiated NAFTA, got nothing out of it, slapped his name on it, called it a day, and then broke the fucker and said it's the worst trade deal ever.
yeah.
You can't. Why would you come to an agreement with him? And then the farmers that are going to suffer because, like you said, uh, China's already buying half as much soybeans as they were before the first round of tariffs, and now they're going to buy even less, if any at all. Part of the way that was made up for, besides just bailing out the farmers, is they were able to do things like buy it through USAID and supply food for our humanitarian arm throughout the world. What does Donald Trump do? Shuts that fucker down too and says, well,
Yeah.
fuck the farmers again. And they don't even realize that's what's going to happen yet.
You know what? I think a lot of people, when you talk to Republicans, they're worried about, well, China's going to bomb us or terrorists or Russia's going to bomb us. I think we're at a stage of the game where if there was a nuclear war, everybody's going to die, so nobody'd be stupid enough to do that. What certainly Russia, but especially China, would love to do is to come in and fuck with our financial systems and fuck with our economy. Now they have the option to do it and not look like villains in the process. Donald Trump left them that opportunity for China to take us down financially, and everybody's still going to sympathize with China. It's just unfucking believable that he fell into that trap.
Well, the thing that also, if what scares me is that after 9/11, we had the French, we had all of these allies helping us out. We never had a domestic terrorist attack on here besides the one that happened in 93. But I mean, who's going to help us if something happened? God forbid something helps us, hurts us that way again.
Right.
I mean, they
Nobody.
always, what's the old saying? You kick a dog enough times, it's not going to come back. Or, I mean,
Yeah.
he's pissed, he's alienated the fucking world for the MAGA crowd. So we got,
Yeah.
MAGA, God-fearing, orange messiah MAGA, and that's who, he would screw over in a minute, which he's done already. But I mean, if something happens to us, like I said, I mean, who's going to come to our aid? I mean, he's already pissed off more people than, God, more people than I've ever done, and that's saying something. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Nobody's
what
going to
the hell.
come. Nobody's going to come to our aid. They're
No.
just not good.
And they're fine
Uh,
with that. They're fine with that because they can own the libs, as they say. I mean, come on, people, wake up.
yeah. 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 It's going to be interesting to see what is actually going to go on. But if Donald Trump thinks he can pull this out at the last minute to save himself, it's just not going to happen. There isn't going to be a deal, not of any importance. I mean, when Donald Trump went into this, his situation was that he was willing to drop it from 145% to 100 or to 80%. That doesn't do any fucking good. That doesn't help. That's not going to change anything. Donald Trump doesn't want to pull it away completely because then he looks like a fool, like an idiot. He'll never do that. So he figures if he drops it to 80%, maybe the stock market will come back. But that doesn't stop the imminent fucking destruction and catastrophe that's just waiting to happen.
Don't you also kind of feel like I remember in 2008 when the markets were crashing and because of the housing financial, that it was like a big deal. I mean, it seems now the market crash is like, it's, you know, it doesn't seem like it's as much as there is. It's like that. It's like it's almost normalized now with the chaos. I mean, yeah, it used to be like because I can remember 1987 too. That I mean, when that happened, I mean, it was just devastating.
Yeah.
The market crashes like that every other day. I mean, under
Yeah.
Trump, of course. But I don't hear the out. I mean, I hear the outrage for from like people like TJ that are paying attention, and but I don't hear the outrage like we did before. It's like, well, this has, and I've been told this has to happen to fix everything that they've been doing for all these years, and I mean they tell me that with a straight face, and I'm like, how?
Well, it's
I mean,
funny. They didn't say that before this happened. They said day one everything was going to get better when Donald Trump became God again, and Donald Trump said. I mean, Donald Trump. The progression of what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump said, first day everything gets better. After he got in, he said, "Well, of course it's not going to be the first day. That's crazy. You don't worry, it'll come around." And then he said, "Well, it's going to hurt a little bit." And then he said, well, we might have to go through a recession. That's quite a departure from what he initially said was going to happen. And for whatever reason, these people are willing to go along with him along the way, even though he's flat out lied and pulled the rug out from under these people. I mean, it is the essence of a cult.
Yeah, it is. And they will believe anything and everything he tells them, all the way down. Whatever he says, whatever their new talking point is, they repeat almost verbatim, and they treat it like it's gospel. Now, I've said it before. I think that it's because they actually still have some amount of reverence for the office of president, and that they firmly believe that because he is president, he is gifted with some knowledge that people like the three of us don't have. That so
Right.
clearly he must know more than we do because he is the president. So if he says this is what's necessary, this is what's necessary because he's the president. But they also only believe it because he's got the right letter next to his name.
Right.
there it
Exactly.
is.
And that
There it is.
stupid. That is stupid. Well, we have the other story that came out yesterday. Um, And that was, well, what we have to tell folks is that when Donald Trump was in office the first time, he started work on a new Air Force One because apparently there weren't enough gold toilets or shitty Pier 1 import accoutrements in the fucking airline. So they started building another Air Force One. They're still not done with it. They won't be done with it until 2027. So the royal family of the country of Qatar, an Islamist country, said, listen, we'll give you a brand new 747 8 luxury big body jet and it's worth $400 million. And we're going to give it to you, Donald Trump, and you can use it for your Air Force One. But when you're done, and when the real Air Force One is done, then you can just give it to your library and use it as much as you want. Donald Trump is a grifter at heart. He's grifted crypto, NFTs, fucking uh, tennis shoes,
Fake.
his True Social, all this shit. He's been grifted all the way, and it's like he's pushing the envelope to the utmost in this. This is so obvious. This is so blatantly a violation of the Emoluments clause, and he doesn't care. The question is, does anybody else care? That's where the problem's going to come in.
Isn't this the same idea that they were saying how Biden and his son profited from, foreign investors, that, that,
Yeah,
that they opened all these, meetings and stuff. But, and I read something also too that, how much money, Junior and Eric are making throughout I mean, they're giving Hunter Biden a run for his money, evidently. I guess the Republicans don't think that's too much to look into, but it's just the biggest hypocrisy. And, and I don't know, man. It's just, the Republicans, speaking as an ex-Republican, I know I say that sometimes, but I mean, there's no such thing as a conservative anymore. It's about money, it's about power. And
Yeah.
you were asking Mike about, what's taking them so long. They're going to wait to the absolutely last minute because they can get every fucking cent out of him because they know when he's gone, there isn't going to be no reason to vote because the base ain't going to vote for JD. They're not going to vote for Marco Rubio. So they're going to pretty much may take down America with them, but they are going to get every cent out of him because that's what they look at. Screw the kids and their school lunches, screw the old people and their prescriptions, meals on wheels. Let's get the money that we can for us. And that's why it's taken them so long. And I used to think like you that, we wouldn't see this much shit this fast, but I mean, God, where does it end?
One
Well,
conspiracy theory that we need to push out there, if by some chance Donald Trump gets impeached, if he gets impeached, we've got to push out the conspiracy theory. It was all JD Vance. He wanted the power. He was behind taking Donald Trump down. So it fucking wipes him out for the election in
Sounds good to
2028.
me. Sounds good to me.
yeah, you're right there. Um, we need to keep that kind of out there in the ether. As far as this plane goes, there's a couple things. Apparently, the two Air Force One jets that Donald Trump has purchased that are one's supposed to come out in 27, one's supposed to come out in 28, are replacing the two that we currently have that are both over 30 years old. So there is, you know, a little bit there about replacing what we had. As far as him getting this $400 million plane from Qatar, it is a violation of the Emoluments Clause. But there is a line in the Emoluments Clause, unless approved by Congress. And
Oh,
it's entirely possible that this Republican Congress will pass something and say, we approve of him getting this plane, it is fine. But they would also have to pass some kind of a budget line, or Donald Trump would have to find money in the defense budget somewhere, because there's a whole bunch of upgrades that would have to be done to this plane because it is not nearly as ready for everything that we expect Air Force One to be. There's uh,
well,
data
security
encryption,
things.
whole
Uh,
bunch of security stuff. I was reading that Air Force One's got like reinforced fuselage, so if there would be a crash, that the president would have, like, there's at least parts of it that are reinforced, so the president would be safe. These kind of things that the Air Force would have to do. And there's some capabilities that the older two planes that Trump wanted to retire his first presidency have, that even this plane and the two that are coming don't have, that are just not part of the new design.
well,
Hmm.
yeah, the one thing I will say about Congress, I'm reading some things that there are some Republicans pushing back on this because it is so hypocritical and it is so blatant. I don't know how many Republicans are pushing back, but anybody with common sense would push back on this. I mean, first of all, we've got a president who's not getting a gift for the country. It's a gift for him. He's the one that's going to end up with it in the end, $400 million. They have the audacity to cry and whine about an alleged $5 million bribe to Joe Biden, which they never found any evidence over. And this one, they're going to say, yeah, that's cool. Well, what about these racist Republicans when they find out that this is coming from a Muslim or Islamic country? This country is feeding money into our president, into our country, and how can it be anything but a fucking bribe at this point? It's just it's just amazing what they will if if Obama sat next to an imam or something like that, they'd say he was a terrorist. Donald Trump can take $400 million from a royal family in Qatar, and they're cool with it. I mean, it's ridiculous, and this is one of those stories we got to make a lot out of because I think Republicans don't listen, and they need to know what's being done and who it's coming from. And I got to believe they're not going to be happy about that.
Well, Mike, that's the art of the deal, man. You haven't done your homework, man. That's the art of the deal.
Apparently not. I
Trump's
got to do my
involved.
research.
Yeah, Trump's involved. So, yeah, somebody, yeah, they'll tell me to do my research, and I go, well, who do I do my research with? You say everything's fake fucking news. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
who are you? And this is what gets them. And I was like, well, did Ben Shapiro tell you that? Did Tucker Carlson tell you that? And they get quiet. And I go, yeah, you have a Russian sympathizer in Tucker Carlson, and Ben Shapiro. I mean, he doesn't like WAP. We all know what that means. I mean, it's like, come on. I mean, but you don't listen to my news. I don't listen to your news. And like I said, Mike, I told you that one time my coworker told me that CNN is owned by the Chinese. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
really? I thought that was the Clinton news network. When did they sell it to China?
Yeah. Apparently, Clinton made a big deal on that and made all kinds of yen on that motherfucker.
Well, of course, and now MAGA's getting all upset about the Epstein list. It's like, well, I know one motherfucker who was on that island, Trump. But it's so funny how he just gets a pass for everything. And I tell my friends, I was like, God damn, that Kool-Aid must taste fucking amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, and the whole thing about worshiping somebody, people will try to, well, what's the difference between Republican and Democrat? It's like, well, we don't worship our candidates. Hell, we barely tolerate their ass. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I don't even get I didn't even get a Joe Biden or Kamala bumper sticker, much less a fucking flag.
No. No.
Yeah, I didn't get anything for Harris this last time. Because I got thinking, I was like, where would I wear it? When would I?
Yeah.
I wouldn't wear it everywhere. I'd only wear it a few places at best. I decided it wasn't worth the investment. Even though it would be going toward a campaign, I figured I could do other donations. I could do other things instead that would be more beneficial. But we don't worship our politicians. Like Jay said, we barely tolerate them.
Yeah.
And the part of the problem is we're not nearly as unified as the Republicans at least appear to be on the surface. Now they're not unified. They can't agree with each other. They can't agree on budgets. They can't agree on anything, uh, except for when it comes to voting. They will show up. They don't care if they disagree when it comes to passing any actual legislation. But by God, if there's an R next to that name, they're going to go vote for that candidate every single time, regardless of who it is, almost regardless of what they've said or done. Whereas Democrats, you know, was listening to the live podcast you did for today, Mike, and they were talking about at one point you guys were talking about Kamala Harris and being with Liz Cheney, and we've talked about it. There were a lot of Democrats that said, "Well, she's too far right. Because she's out with Liz Cheney," and could not bring themselves to hold their nose and vote for Kamala Harris. Instead, would vote for Jill Stein or not vote because they could not agree with Kamala Harris. Democrats need to get it together and start voting blue no matter who, almost no matter who, just to make sure that these Republican fucks are out of power.
No, I'm
And what
not. I'm not. I'm not afraid of people saying, "Well, I don't like this Democrat. I don't want to vote for him." That's well and good, but we got to get out of this fucking dumpster fire. We got to get out of this hole. You got to vote blue, no matter who, up until the time when we free ourselves from the shackles of this shit show that we've got going on, and then we can be more discerning of what kind of Democratic candidate we want. Your choice is somebody you don't totally agree with, or somebody who's going to take everything you got. It shouldn't be a hard choice, but for some people, it's incredibly difficult.
and my word of caution to Democrats that are getting excited about the Republicans, like not going after Grassley and those other Republicans. they're not going to vote for Democrats. They'll still vote for Republicans. They'll
Yeah,
just they'll just do their anger. They'll just do their anger at them, but they'll still have been voting for a Republican. I mean that
absolutely.
that's the way Republican mindset is that that whole vote for blue, no matter who, that's what the Republicans do now. I mean, they don't
Right.
vote, so don't get too excited when you see those people because they're still like that one guy that was all, I think it was Grassley, that he was still wearing his fucking MAGA hat. So that tells
Yeah.
you right there everything you need to know.
Well, Jesus Christ, Chuck Grassley, 90 fucking one, gonna be 95 when he's up for re-election, wants to run again.
I want
Jesus
his
Christ.
confidence. I want his confidence.
Yeah.
He is old enough. He is old, he's 50 years older than me. He
Yeah.
is mathematically old enough to be my grandfather.
Great grandfather.
Probably, actually. But I mean, Jesus Christ, the man's been in office longer than I've been alive. He needs to sit down, go enjoy his retirement. But see what they want to do. I've talked about a lot of times on this. I don't know if they have changed the game plan, but the plan had been at one point was for him to retire, appoint his grandson, who is my age, to his Senate seat. So that way, when they go to the voting booth and they go to vote, there's going to be a lot of people who will just see the name Grassley and keep voting for the same family, a different person, but they're not going to be paying enough attention to realize it's now Pat Grassley, not Chuck Grassley. And
Yeah.
it was their way of continuing the seat to keep it in a safe Republican, system. Jesus Christ. The power of incumbency is huge when it comes to some of these elections. People will go in, and if things are going halfway decent and they're doing okay, they will still vote for the same fucker every single time, regardless of who he is and what their policies are.
Yep.
We got one state rep here in Iowa. He represents the northwest quarter of the state, or the northwest quarter of the state. He votes against any public funding for anything going to that section of the state every single time. The voting record is there. The guy running against him kept coming out and saying, I want to push for this for our district, this for our district. There's these funds that are available. We should try to use them.
Right.
And the guy, he keeps getting reelected. And it's the fucker that replaced, what's his name? He was the racist one.
Well, there's a lot of those. There's a lot.
And there was
You're talking about what was his name? Thurman or something? You talking about the guy down south?
No, he was the one who replaced the guy here in Iowa. The one.
Oh yeah, King, Steve King.
Steve King, yeah. He replaced Steve King, same district. He's basically Steve King, who's just able to mask the racism just a little bit better.
I'll give you an idea how old Chuck Grassley is. Now, you've compared him that he was born before chocolate chips, and that's chocolate chip cookies, and that's true. I think we can acknowledge I'm an old motherfucker at 65 years old, right? Okay, I'm old.
I'm right behind you.
I'm old. Comparatively speaking, I'm old. My parents, who are both dead, my parents, who were both dead, were born 10 years after Chuck Grassley was born. He was born in 1930. My folks were born in 1940, and they're dead. Wow. Why can't Chuck Grassley take a fucking hint?
Yeah.
Well,
it's about power for one.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to give up the power, but two, there's a group of voters, especially here in Iowa, because I hear it all the time. He's the ranking Republican. He's the oldest Republican. He's Senate pro tem right now because Republicans are in control. He's in charge of the Judiciary Committee and I don't know how many other committees. It's a level of power that, it's going to bring, power for Iowa because they're going to focus on issues from Iowa because he's this powerful person. But he never does. He votes against Iowa half the time.
I heard some disturbing information, and this may be a rumor. It may or may not be true, but I think it's funny anyway. Remember those stories where that that kid who was a representative that was, I want to say Hawthorne. Was it Hawthorne? It wasn't Hawthorne. It was a kid in the wheelchair. He was a good looking kid. He was a Republican
Yeah.
MAGA fuck, and they
Uh,
ran him out.
I know you're talking about.
uh, was it Hawthorne? No, Cawthorn, something like that. Madison
Cawthorn,
Cawthorn.
yeah, Madison Cawthorn. He said that there were these sex parties and all this kind of stuff. Apparently, he also said that Chuck Grassley shows up to these things. Really, Chuck? What the fuck are you doing at 90 years old? Because God damn it, I want to get me some of that. What the fuck? Talk about, can you imagine Grassley going, I'm a U.S. Senator. I'm sexy as shit. No, you're not. You're an old fucking wrinkly old man. And you're sketchy at best. You're sketchy at best.
I
Yeah,
tell you something worse. I tell you something worse. Ted Cruz shows up. I'll
yeah,
there.
that
Well,
greasy motherfucker. That,
as far as
yeah,
Grassley goes, he probably thought it was the better option than retiring to the villages.
Oh,
I suppose. Maybe a little less STDs.
yeah, maybe they.
Maybe a
Maybe.
little, maybe a little less, maybe a little less STDs than the villages. I want to go down to the villages sometime just to drive around, just to see what it's really like, because it sounds really fucking creepy. And I know people that have places down there. It can't be 100% like that, but there's got to be some areas that 80-year-old people get together to swap fucking
It,
security, social security checks and whatever else.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but I don't know, man. When you're that old, I guess as long as it keeps going, you use it while you got it, I guess. Hell, I don't know.
Damn it.
More power to
I'm
them, whatever.
I'm 65, and my biggest concern is to remain ambulatory. I I don't fucking get it. I don't get it at all.
Little blue pill, little blue pill.
Yeah. You
That
you were
way,
talking. Eric
that
was
way.
talking about incumbency and how important that is, and you were talking before we went on about Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. We know John Ossoff is up for reelection in 2026. There was some talk that Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, would run against him. He came out and said, "Nah, not going to do that." Then everybody said Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, Margie, get up there, go against Ossoff." And she says she's not going to go up there. So who the fuck are the Republicans going to run against Ossoff, and do they have any chance at all? Because Ossoff's pretty good.
Like I said, I heard
Uh,
that Trump's gonna talk to Kemp about running. So I don't know if that's gonna help out, but that's kind of how desperate they're getting.
well, from the articles I've read, they don't. Kemp doesn't want to run, or there's speculation that Kemp doesn't want to run. He's trying to distance himself from the
Trump.
MAGA movement and Donald Trump, trying to set up a 28 presidential run.
I think that's
And
probably the case.
so I don't think Donald Trump is going to be able to convince him to run. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she doesn't want to run for Georgia Senate. Of course, goes out on a limb, says, nothing happens in the Senate anyway. Oh, it's only one vote. If it's John Ossoff, we can still work with what we have. It's no big deal. There is one other representative or one other Republican in Georgia right now that has declared it's I can't think of his first name. It's a Carter, actually, that's
Oh,
running as a
really?
Republican. I don't know if there's any relation to former President Jimmy Carter, um, but from the polls I saw, was doing better than Marjorie Taylor Greene, but not good enough to beat Ossoff. Um, I don't know if they have anybody now. Marjorie Taylor Greene may be making a run for governor. She might have her eye on the governor's chair.
Yeah, that may be. That may be. It'd be nice to get her out of the federal business, but she wouldn't be much good in Georgia. Uh, the problem with Brian Kemp is Ossoff is fairly popular. He beat some Republicans already. What Brian Kemp has to consider is If he goes in there and has a bad showing or even loses, that pretty much nixes his chances to run for president in 2028. I
Mhm.
think Brian Kemp is looking at what's going on with MAGA and knows it's going to fall apart and turn to shit here soon. And the Republicans are going to need somebody that isn't as tainted by MAGA as everybody else is. I think he's thinking, and maybe even Liz Cheney too, are thinking we might be real candidates because we don't have as much stink from Donald Trump on us. They're going to have to come up with somebody to run for president, and I don't know who that's going to be because J.D. Vance is not going to be the guy.
The name is Buddy Carter, and
Buddy Carter.
I couldn't see anything that he's a Republican, of course, but nothing linked him to Jimmy Carter. When you're talking about the president, evidently Trump is trying to pit JD against Rubio to he's trying to start, I guess, some kind of like, I guess, I don't know. It seems like the guy that can kiss his ass more to be his successor. So Trump's really high on Rubio. So it seems like he's higher on Rubio than he is Vance. So that ought to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's what we need is another pussy ass bitch in the presidency. That's by the way,
Well,
Buddy Carter, I just looked it up. Buddy Carter is currently a representative in the House for Georgia. So it's a natural transition for him to run for the Senate, but he's a
right.
fucking nobody with no name, so I don't know that he would have much chance.
Well, if he's already in the House, the way I understand it though is he can't run for both, which means now there's no incumbent in his seat. So
Oh,
I don't think you can run if he's running for Senate. I don't think he can also run for reelection
Yeah, because
for his own district.
that's what happened to Adam Schiff. He couldn't run again. That's why he ran for the Senate. You have to give up that House seat.
Yeah.
and
So
that's what happened to that Porter lady. That's why she's no
yeah,
longer in the
Katie
House.
Porter.
Katie Porter, yeah, because they both ran to primary for the open seat for Dianne Feinstein when she passed away. So yeah, it's entirely possible that could. I don't know what his district is. I don't know if that's a close enough district where it's a pickup, or maybe it's still safe Republican. Who knows? But to take the incumbency out, that changes the dynamic of that district a little bit, and it's at least possible that even if it doesn't flip, they may have to put some resources into keeping that seat that they
Right.
may have to divert from somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, that might be a little sketchy. I think that's probably why Trump is trying to talk to Brian Kemp. I got to think that right at this point, Brian Kemp is not taking any advice from Donald Trump. I think
I
he sees
wouldn't.
the writing on the wall and it's going to shit, and Donald Trump won't be around he might be gone before 2026, certainly by 2028. So there's no reason to give in to Donald Trump and do what he wants. He's a fucking goof. And I think Brian Kemp is smart enough to see that.
Well, Brian Kemp is also he's popular in Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of Democrats that they'll vote for him and stuff. I don't get why. I would never vote for him. But maybe the rise of somebody like Brian Kemp, maybe he's the one that finally puts that stake in the MAGA heart, and ends it, and let them kind of fight because if he comes up there and, a lot of Trump's people are gonna go whoever he selects to run, if it's Rubio or Vance. So Brian Kemp, I support him on that. Let them fight because when somebody's like that and doesn't bow to MAGA, like I said, I wouldn't vote for him as president. I'd vote for any Democrat over him.
Yeah.
So let them fight. Let that, the war's coming within the party. We've been, celebrating this forever or whatever, but even Insurrection Barbie, as they call her, Marjorie Taylor Greene, even she's turning on Trump. So that's getting pretty interesting to watch because she did backtrack on something, saying, "Well, it's not towards Trump." I was like, "Well, he's the president. Nothing
Yeah.
happens without his. He doesn't know what's going on half the time, but nothing goes through without it's Trump's deal. You can't have it both ways. It's like Obama said it. Biden said it, I'm the president, the buck stops with me, and Trump may want to say the buck doesn't stop with him, but the buck stops with him.
Well, here's something to consider, and I'm curious as to what you guys think. Um, it's well and good to talk about who are good Republican candidates and who are bad Republican candidates right now. But what imminently is going to happen? There's going to be a lot of pain inflicted on this country and the people in this country, maybe more so Republicans. Is there enough pain inflicted that we don't know about yet? Is there enough pain to be inflicted and people angry enough and upset enough that maybe anybody with an R would be not a people would not be able to stomach because they're struggling with whatever they're struggling with and they will blame the Republicans in general.
Yeah. Well, you and I have talked about it, and I've talked about it on the lives and different things. I do think that with the tariffs and everything else going on, I look at history and you look at what happened with the Great Depression. Things got so bad that the Democrats had power for 20 years.
Right.
You could not, there was only one 2 year period from 32 to 52 where Republicans had control of the House and the Senate at the same time. Otherwise, it was Democrat the entire time.
Right.
And I think things are going to, if things get bad enough and the pain is bad enough, you could turn a generation away from voting Republican. And we're at the point when we talk about it all the time. The biggest two voting blocks are going to be millennials and Gen Zs. And I think I could be wrong. If they're not up there yet by 2028, Gen Alpha is going to be knocking on the door of at least being voting eligible, the oldest ones of them, come 28 or 30. And right. You could turn that entire Gen Alpha and Gen Z voting base against Republicans for 20 years plus. And some of them you won't get those people back ever.
No.
I think that what's going to happen is after MAGA, I think the Republican Party is going to cease to exist. I just don't see it. There's going to be, like you said, the younger ones doing it because, we talk about Democrats being, the Republicans, but Grassley and all of them. I mean, Trump's not a spring chicken. He acts like one. But and the Democrats may suffer too. The Democrats may not they might not recover either. But I think there's going to be. I think I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetimes, Mike, but in Eric's probably will.
Certainly not mine.
There's going to be something to where there's going to probably be. I mean, I think the Republicans are going to wear the wigs, and I'm not talking about the stuff me and you wear on Saturday night, Eric. It's gonna it's gonna happen. It's gonna go down, and I think that they're not gonna want. I think the Republican name is going to be so toxic that it's going to be. I think the Democrats have a chance to recover, but I much see the Republicans ending. Though they'll still be the same, assholes wanting to take stuff away from the less needy to give to the rich, but they're going to be calling themselves something different because the Republicans' name is going to go down with Trump, I believe.
Republicans are kind of like Tesla. They may survive, but they're going to have to rebrand, retool,
Correct.
and do something different.
Correct.
By the way, the oldest Gen Alphas are in 2010. So today they're 15. By 2028, they'll be 19. So
yeah, they'll be voting. Yeah.
Who comes up with these damn names like, Boomer, Gen X? I mean, I don't know, Alpha, Millennial, I mean, it's like the people that named the operating systems in Microsoft, Windows XP, I mean,
well, a couple of them made sense. The baby boomers were from the baby boom after the war. I don't know where Gen X fit in there.
We were
us
the
millennials,
lost generation.
Millennials, it was because we were going to all turn 18 right around the turn of the new millennia in 2000, starting there.
Yeah.
As far as where Gen Z came in, I don't know if that became it was Gen X, so then millennials were technically Y, then to Z. I don't know who picked that one up on there, but
well, it's so fucked up because they call me a baby boomer and I'm on the young end of the baby boomers. It goes till 64. I was born in 60. Now people come out and say, "Oh no, you're not a baby boomer." Well, that's what it says I am. You're Jen Jones. I'm tired of fucking. I'm 65. I don't care what you call me, boomer, Jen Jones. It doesn't fucking matter. It is what it is. We are as old as we are. And the younger crowd, I had lunch with my two sons and my daughter-in-law today. They're millennials. They seem pretty reasonably minded. None of those people would vote for Donald Trump or anything a Republican does. But I keep hearing that these Gen Z people, they're not well informed. They're young. They're just all about either male toxicity or just stupid and don't really care. That's the only troubling thing. I understand that in 2028, the vast majority of people voting will be millennials and Gen Zs. So we need to keep that in mind as we're finding candidates and as we are finding ways to campaign. The baby boomers will have some impact still, but not nearly as much as they have up to this point.
Well, I think what also Republicans rely on is people not voting. So are those
Yeah.
people
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be so disillusioned that they're not going to vote? I mean, I know as speaking as a Gen Xer, I remember that, we've never had a Gen X president. I thought Kamala was going to be one, and then Mike burst my bubble on that one, say she's a boomer. He got me on that one. But I think the Gen Xers and the boomers are pretty much lumped in the same thing because when they say "Hey, boomer," they're talking about Gen Xers too.
Yeah.
So I think that, what the important thing is that I also think this is why I think the Republican brand is dead, like Tesla. It's too bad about Tesla. Nikolai Tesla, if you don't know who him, most people don't know who he is. He was a brilliant inventor. Probably would have given us, free light, free power if it wasn't for the billionaires. Billionaires were a thing back then too. I guess there were millionaires back then, maybe. But he got screwed in life. Now he's getting screwed in death. Yeah, they're gonna have to change that name and get rid of Musk. But yeah, I don't know what I got lost track of what I was thinking, but they're gonna have to vote. They're gonna have to do something to get people out to vote. That you can't that down here in Texas and I think Georgia too. If an old person's waiting in line, you can't give them any water. They just do that kind of shit to freaking discourage voting. They do this. They make it, especially in Texas, they make it hard. They make it hard to vote. So it discourages people, and that's why I know in Texas a lot of them are staying in power because people don't vote. I think we had a mayor's race here. There were 27 candidates who went down to two. There's a runoff, but it was 10% of the vote. And we had this thing going on called Fiesta, which is, drinking for the children and drinking for charity. Well, more people showed up to Fiesta than they did to vote, and they just don't make it easy enough down here, and that's a big problem.
Well, I think the young people have to realize that how you vote doesn't own the boomers.
Yep.
You're voting for your future. We boomers aren't going to be here for the future. And that's why I have a problem with boomers deciding the future, deciding young people's destiny. We aren't going to be here. We shouldn't have a vote in that. The young people should. And it's just a matter of do they take it seriously enough and are they informed enough to make the right choice? I mean, at some point, I'm going to be sitting on my deathbed. I'm going, fuck, man, I tried everything. Go ahead, deal with it. And you're a millennial, Eric. Do you feel like millennials are figuring this shit out?
I think so. A little bit, especially the older ones. We've had to come through how many financial crises, how many recessions, how many issues. We had the recession after 2001, after 9/11. We had the recession after the housing market in '08. Then we had to come back after the pandemic. We had to come back after this. And I think the older ones are starting to kind of realize it and starting to figure it out. As far as the younger ones, Gen Zs, as they're still figuring out life, for some of them, this is their first real taste of bad politics, a bad economy caused by a political candidate where you can see the direct cause and effect. Um, I think this is going to affect them voting in 26, 28, a lot more than people think. If they can see the direct correlation, they're going to end up voting against Republicans, going, you guys fucked the market. You guys fucked our jobs. We had, prices going up, week after week. Shelves were empty. The problem is we have to keep the heat on and the pressure on so that we don't get out of that news cycle, because a lot of people forget what happened 3 months ago. If it's not actively affecting them when they go to vote, they will not remember.
Correct.
And if things have recovered by then, if Republicans have gotten rid of Trump between now and 28 and just rode the wave with JD Vance, tried to bring it as close to normal as they could, there's a lot of people that will forget how bad this year was come 28, and we can't let them forget, because we'll be right back in the shit for what should be an easy victory. We're going to have to fight for a lot harder than we should.
I agree 100%. I mean, and plus is when I think there's a lot of generation. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I know a lot for Gen X that there's a lot of people, they like that asshole. They like and I think that's why Trump really appealed to a lot of people, because it's that, you have Biden up there, and Biden's this feeble old man, but Trump's this guy that, supposedly, allegedly, they attempt on his life and stuff. And, that makes him a hero, because you have idiots like Joe Rogan out there, and, Ben Shapiro. So, but, their ratings have gone down, and the rational boomer, it's gone
I
up. And
wish. I wish.
so has the Midas touch.
Right.
So maybe we're getting into the point where people are, I mean, you like the glitz and the glamour, or, it's like, it's like, that, flashy, rock star. You can have all the stuff going on, but you still got to get the music down. So maybe people are starting to wake up, but I agree with both you guys. It's going to get a lot worse. But what pisses me off is a lot of us, the ones of us that were paying attention, we're going to have to fucking suffer with them, the ones that weren't. And it's
Yeah,
like
that is a problem.
I'm seeing these videos about, especially Latinos for Trump. They're all excited, but when their brother or their husband gets thrown in jail, oh no, what happened here? It's kind of like with, FEMA. He just evidently fired the head of FEMA. So
Yeah.
now what's going to happen is that, Huckabee from Oklahoma was looking, for aid, and I mean, Oklahoma got flooded. I mean, the Red River, which is kind of separates us, was just massively over.
Yeah.
And now you are going to have hurricane season starts, and you have all these red states. Well, they're going to come looking for, handouts from, Big Brother FEMA. It ain't going to be there because there's nobody running FEMA.
Yeah.
So I don't, if this doesn't wake people up, and also with the tariffs, what people aren't talking about also is this affects prescription drugs as well. And don't forget the minerals that China cut off from us. I mean, to make cell phones. I mean, this shit has got, I mean, the US government was this like well-run machine. And yeah, there's waste, but the Republicans have done a real good job of making I think Ed said this the other day, Mike, about how they've demonized the federal government. I mean, it's a well-running machine, and you take one little piece out, dominoes are gonna fall. So when
This will
people,
be this will be the one time when the trickle down theory actually works, but in a
yeah,
bad way.
exactly, yeah, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, if grandma, and I say that, but down here in Texas, we had the power go out because we don't believe in alternative forms of energy. It's all about, and grandma froze to death and grandpa too, when we had the power go out, and they still voted for Abbott. So, I mean,
Well,
all this stuff comes to pass. Are we sure they're going to like turn on the Republicans? Because I would like to say they would, but hell, I don't know. And I've seen it firsthand in Texas. So God help us with the rest of the country.
well, you talked about the power grid in Texas. I saw something. Apparently, I don't know if it passed or if it's up for a vote or whatever. They were trying to make it so solar plants in Texas
Had to run at night.
ha- had to buy power from fossil fuel plants
Wow.
to be able to push out the same equivalent power at night that they were pushing during the day.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, don't these solar plants store power so they can run at night too? I mean, it's not like they only run when the sun's out.
I
Yeah,
think
I think so.
what Texas does though is they have so much power that they can allocate, and because we're not on the grid like the rest of the country, we're not on the we have our own grid, so there we have to buy, especially when the power went out, we have to buy like with the heat and all that stuff, we have to buy like power from different companies. So they pass that along to the customers. So that's when you're down here, it can fluctuate from sometimes 100, $200 depending on it. It depends on the demand down here. We're like on our own little island here, so it actually makes no sense why we're not on the national. I mean, if somebody can tell me why we're not on national, tell me, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's about money and it's about greed and it's about
Exactly.
grift.
Exactly.
Somebody's making a ton of money and they don't care if it affects you guys negatively. I wanted to ask you about this whole situation. We have ICE arresting a judge. Then the ICE arrest a mayor, which I think is going to cause them problems. And now the people from ICE are saying, look, these members of Congress were down there, and one of them body slammed one of the ICE agents and stuff. And I'm looking at this woman, probably about my age, very thin. I'm trying to think how she body slammed fucking anybody. It was absolutely ridiculous. We saw the whole video, but they have the audacity to suggest that they would arrest sitting members of Congress. And I say, please do that. Please do that tomorrow. Let's get them in fucking jail right away and then see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to come down, and these courts are already holding the line, and they start doing stuff like this, and there is going to be discovery. There's going to be, they're going to have to prove reason for being detained. That is, all of it, and you're going to have to identify the arresting officer.
Exactly.
And if some of these ICE agents aren't, showing their faces, sounds like they're not showing any ID. Are they even ICE agents, or are they deputized Proud Boys and whatever? I'm not sure. No one knows, because we don't know that they're following the law. But when it comes to putting these people in jail, they can try it. Judges have very little, allowance for people doing stuff like that. And if they try to drag their feet and not produce whatever's asked for by the judge, people are eventually going to end up getting charged. These low level people will get contempt of court. And as the lower people start to fall, the upper ones are going to fall in line, because they're going to go, oh shit, I don't want that to be me.
Well, if we're talking about these alleged ICE agents who come out in plain black clothing, their faces covered, which I find very troubling. Why would you cover your face if you're a proud employee of ICE?
Correct.
But if we find out that these ICE agents, alleged ICE agents, aren't in fact employed by the U.S. government and are just proud boys or whatever the fuck you want to call them, to me that goes from uh, uh, illegal detainment to fucking kidnapping. It is kidnapping. And if you think Donald Trump is going to be in a position to save your ass, I'm sorry. This is what I'm thinking though. Whether we're talking about Elon Musk's little buddies going into Social Security or ICE agents who aren't ICE agents, there's going to be a lot of people at risk of going to fucking jail.
And I know down here in Texas, even the judges, everybody open carry down here. I mean, I think so, I saw somebody say that, you almost, get a ticket for not carrying a gun down here, which is pretty much
Yeah.
true. They try to arrest a judge down here. That's going to be an interesting thing to do, because yeah, with somebody showing up on a mask and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, if somebody comes up to me, I mean, I would fight back too. I'm just not gonna let them take me over like that. I mean, and there's people, that fight back, resisting arrest. Well, hell yeah, you're going to resist the arrest. You got to identify yourself if you're under arrest, don't you? And that's the last thing I heard. And what's
Well,
this
don't they
thing
have?
about this habeas corpus stuff? I mean, is
Well,
that
yeah. Let's
the
talk
next
about that
step?
in a minute. Let's talk about that in a minute. But doesn't Florida have something called a stand your ground law?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you can
A
carry a
lot of
gun in
states
Florida,
do.
correct?
Yep.
If some guy in a black outfit, no identifying marks, no ID shown, they just want to grab you up and pull you away. We don't know that they even work for ICE. What's stopping a Florida resident from pulling out a gun and blowing the motherfucker's head off? I mean,
Nothing.
it would seem like that would be a reasonable act. And I got to tell you, with as many people who carry guns in Florida or Texas or some of these other places,
Yeah.
that's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Because you know what? Immigrants, whether they be illegal or not, they can have guns too. And somebody's just going to try to save their life because they don't know if they're going to be put on a plane and go to El Salvador. What do you got to lose at that point?
Well, exactly. And I saw going into what Jace was talking about with the suspension of potential suspension of habeas corpus. I saw a few different creators saying if they do that and they suspend the writ of habeas corpus, uh, what's your alternative? You're better to go down fighting and
Yeah.
take a couple of them with you because what a lot of people don't know, habeas corpus, I believe, is Latin, but it's the legal term for the right to uh, basically have somebody go to a judge and say, this person's been detained on why, on what charge. You have to be before a judge within so much time. That's why, you're arraigned the next morning. If you get pulled over for a DUI, that night you sit in the drunk tank for a few hours. Next morning or next afternoon, you're in front of a judge. You get given bail or bond or whatever, and you get sent on your way. You're told your charges. If they suspend it, they don't have to put you in front of a judge. They don't have to tell you why you're charged. And there's no length of time for when you have to be in front of that judge. Um, and if they do that, there's going to be people that are going to say, "Fuck it, what are my options? I can either go sit in a cell for having done nothing for who knows how long, or I can take one or two of them with me and maybe get away."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazes
I go ahead,
it,
Jace.
it amazes me when I hear that how many Republicans are okay with that because I remember hearing that Obama and Biden both, which didn't happen, are limiting the ammo that we can have because they don't want us to have guns. But they're
Yeah.
totally fine with this, what their guy does it, which is just, more hypocrisy. I mean, it's, I don't know. I heard that and, habeas corpus, I guess it's something bring forth the body, I guess, so to speak. That's like the term of it. And but if is that something Congress has to do? Is that something that I mean,
Yeah. I think Congress has to do something with it ultimately. And of course, it would go to court. And I don't think anybody, including the Supreme Court, would agree to it.
yeah,
Honestly, when we're talking about Republicans, here's the mistake we always make. When Donald Trump says something, or Republicans say something, half the time they're pulling something out of their ass and they're spitballing. They're trying to say the thing that's going to scare the most people. The habeas corpus thing, if that happens, and I don't think it will, I don't think they can pull it off. I think they're saying it to make you nervous or distract you from something else. But if they did that, that's when we're going to see violence. You're
oh yeah,
absolutely right. Because, like you say, they have nothing to lose at this point. Some guy in a black suit with a face mask comes up and wants to grab your kid or your wife or your husband. Somebody's going to get fucking blown away. And then we're going to find out, was this person really an employee or was he just attempting a kidnapping?
well, you have a lot of cosplayers too that
Yeah.
try to do this. They dress up like military and they try to do that too. So how do you know it's not them? I mean, if you don't have somebody identifying themselves, it's like Eric said. I mean, what do you got to lose? I mean, if somebody stands between you and your family, I mean, yeah, I mean it's scary times, man. But yeah, I think you're right because it was Stephen Miller that came out with that. So he's the one that always tries to scare people. But I was just wondering if Trump's going to do like an executive order. Yeah, it's got to have act of Congress, but he's tried this shit before to where what he's trying to do is they're pushing to see how much they can get away with. And they
All right.
said something about like not only the Democrats. they want to do this to arrest the Democrats, but they're looking at judges too that don't go along with them because they've said so. Well, the judges can't do their job, then we can just get rid of them. So I mean,
Well,
they're trying to see what they can get away with.
Yeah.
it's not just the judges and the Democrats. They also want to do it for their deportations because at every turn, uh, judges that have been appointed from Reagan to now
Right.
have
Trump.
all come out and said you still have to give them a trial to prove they're here illegally, that they have committed the crime of being in this country undocumented, whatever, and that we need to deport them. You have to give them a trial, and Donald Trump doesn't want to give them all trials because he knows he's going to lose most of them.
But he says, what are we supposed to send all of them to trial? Well, they're not trials, they're hearings. He says, but we got 2 million people that we got to do that to. How can we do that? So we can ignore the Constitution. Fact of the matter is, the Constitution says what the Constitution says, and whether it's 2 people or 2 million people, and whether that seems inconvenient to you or not, it makes no difference. That's what it fucking says. Maybe try to deport fewer people, but you got to follow the Constitution, which seems to be what the Republicans keep ranting about up until the time they come across something that isn't convenient for them.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Well,
right.
you're talking about needing the hearings for all these people. If I remember right, Biden tried to get it, and he couldn't get Republicans to agree when they passed the one immigration thing that they signed. And then Kamala Harris had a plan to have more money for immigration judges, more judges to hold more hearings, and then to fast track all these hearings to get them over and done with, which would mean instead of it being a 5 to 10 year wait sometimes to get before a judge to hear about whether or not you get a stay, if the money's there and the judges are there, you could have it done in 3 to 6 months, and you're rapid fire in this stuff, and it doesn't become a problem because a lot of situations change in that 3 to 6 year window while they're waiting or whatever. But Republicans conveniently forget that fact that there were plans in place. They prefer this method because it solves it a lot quicker and, in their minds, better because, well, everybody else is just gone. We don't got to give anybody refugee status. We don't got to let asylum seekers in this way. We'll just send everybody home, and it'll be for just the people that are born here.
Yeah.
Have you
Let
have
me,
you noticed though the Republicans don't build anything? They don't repair anything. They always want to destroy things. I mean, even
right.
Rick Perry, when he was running, talking about those departments he couldn't change. The Department of Education does a lot of stuff, but are they going to try to repair it? It's got some issues. I mean, everything's got issues, but no, we're going to totally annihilate it, start from scratch, but we still want you to pay your student fucking loans. You
Yeah.
know, we'll give these corporations and those what were those during COVID, those personal loans
PPP
that came
loans.
out that some of those
Yeah,
people in
PPP.
Congress, they're not expected to pay that back out, but if some family that, got his degree, not making as much as a degree because they're the ones that got to pay it back. And if
Right.
they're not pissed about that, I don't know what to tell them. I mean, that's exactly what you're dealing with. But no, don't make it better. Don't fix the problem, just annihilate it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let me give you a theory. We're coming close to the end here, but let me give you a theory about the habeas corpus thing. Donald Trump wanted to load people up to send them to El Salvador. The court said, no, you can't do that. So what do? They say, okay, we're going to send them to Libya instead. And they're starting to stop that too. The whole idea with habeas corpus initially, I think, has to do with those immigrants. And they're trying to intimidate courts by saying, well, motherfuckers, if you don't do what we want to do, we're going to do away with habeas corpus. Now, if they were able to do that, I wouldn't suggest they wouldn't take white American citizens either. Again, they're pushing the envelope a little bit, see what they can get away with. They're testing the waters. There's enough pushback on the habeas corpus thing, even from Republicans, that I think they're going to spin off that and try something else. With Donald Trump, every time he runs into a brick wall, he tries to spin and divert, come up with a loophole or something. We saw him with the courts. We're going to see him do it with this. I don't think initially their intention is habeas corpus for everyone, but we know if they get away with it, that's where it'll go.
Yeah, you're probably right. Um, and one of the reasons they were looking at going to Libya was because we heard El Salvador was saying, wait a minute, we need actual proof that these people are guilty of something um, before
because
we
NATO or
accept
somebody was
anybody
going to
more.
take $300 million away from them.
All about
Yeah,
money.
it was about money, and it was way more than they were getting paid from the Trump
Right.
administration, in which we still don't know where the money came from for that project to send them down there because, as far as I know, Congress hasn't appropriated any funds. So what budget did Donald Trump pull that money from?
And where are
Yeah,
they
we
pulling
don't.
that? Where are they pulling that money from about, giving those people, I don't know if it's a national thing, but down here they're offering,
A
illegal,
thousand
they
bucks.
call them $1,000. Where are they getting that money from? And if I'm paying attention, I know Donald Trump doesn't pay his bills. So they send your ass out of the country. Fuck you. I don't owe you any money.
Right. Well, and we saw what's going on with the money in the Trump administration when Chris Murphy was questioning Kristi Noem. She says, "You said you're out of control. You'll be broke by July, and the fiscal year doesn't end till September or something like that." So
Mm-hmm.
they're just spending money, taking it from anywhere, and they're not. Congress, who has the power of the purse, has nothing to say about it. This is where it's going to get sketchy for Donald Trump. He might get away with it at first, but ultimately it's going to come home to roost because people are going to say, "Where are you getting the money from?" Even Republicans are going to say this.
I think what they're running into too is that, hold those lower level people more accountable. You saw what happened with Cash Patel. It's like he looked like, he was talking to his teacher about his fucking homework assignment. He looked
Yeah.
like deer in the fucking headlights. He had no fucking idea what was going on. And I think the gnomes and I think the Elons, I think they're trying to do what Trump does. And Trump's been pretty successful at the Teflon stuff. I mean, a lot of shit's happened to him, but he's gotten away with a lot more shit than a lot of people do. But his
Yeah.
underlings aren't going to fucking get away with that shit. And we're starting to see that too. Democrats, Republicans holding them to it. And all I heard about all this waste. And she's a darling of MAGA, about that waste. It's Christie. It's like, God, where was Elon going after that department, And she's
Yeah.
still spending more. So show us the proof of the waste, but call them out on that. And I think that's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to hold those lower underlings more accountable because, Trump will be gone and, probably before the end of his term. But
Well, they say the way to take down a dictator is take out the pillars that are holding him
correct.
up, and hopefully people have grasped that. And we're going to get contempts of court for those lawyers. They're going to get sanctioned and maybe disbarred. That's the way to do it, at least at this point. Hopefully,
Yep.
they know enough to do that.
Well, and that's going to be part of it. And I think as we keep having these hearings about where's the money, okay, Kristi Noem says Homeland Security is going to be out of money by July. There's going to come Republicans. We've talked about it before. For the next 2 years until we get to the midterms, if Donald Trump is going to be removed, it's going to be by Republicans.
Right.
If the spending doesn't get under control, if they think it's going to cost them, if this economy keeps going to shit, they're going to. I keep saying they're going to wait till the last possible moment to do anything, to when they think it's going to help them the absolute most in the midterm elections. But he's going to back them in. He might back them into a corner anyway, where they have no choice but to pull the articles of impeachment out themselves and run with it. And if Republicans start it, Democrats will be on board, and Republicans won't start it unless they have the votes all the way through, and
Right.
they will be able to get him out of this in the Senate. It's not going to be like the first time when he gets impeached, at least not until after the midterm elections. If the Democrats start it when they win the midterms, that's a different ball game. But until then, if Republicans start impeachment proceedings, I fully expect he would be removed by Republicans because they think it's the only way they can win in the midterms.
The
Yeah, because you
impeachment.
don't need all the Republicans. You don't need all the Republicans because you'll have all the Democrats.
So is there a
Right.
law? Is there a law that the House has to start the impeachment thing? It can't come from the
Yes.
Senate. Okay,
Has to start in the House.
because y'all saw that thing.
Effectively,
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, effectively what it is The House draws up the charges, which is what the impeachment articles are. The Senate holds the trial. The Senate
Right.
can't hold a trial without the charges.
Right. Right.
I see that already, how they wanted to stop, the tariffs with Trump. I think that was Rand Paul that had that. So you're starting to kind of see that already in the Senate. So if they can just, do y'all really think Mike Johnson will, can they override him to where they bring an impeachment, or does he have to actually bring it up?
I think
There
they
is
can.
a
There's a rule to do that.
Yeah, they can call it, was it a privileged motion? Uh Certain members of, I don't know if it's any member or if it's just certain members of the House can call for a privileged motion, and they would have to vote on it in like 2 days. They could try to table it, but if it's a Republican starting it, they're probably going to have enough votes on their side to get it at least called for a vote. And you only need, I think, 5 Republicans decide with all Democrats to
Yeah.
send the articles to the Senate.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If they can't pass the budget in the House, it might not be long for that position.
That's true.
Yeah, because you got that Freedom Caucus too, because they're not too happy with Trump, and one of them's Chip Roy down here from Texas. He's a real wild card, but I can see him doing something like that.
Well,
Absolutely.
Chip Roy already said you can't primary all of us.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. All right, we're at the end here. We're going to wrap things up. I want to thank Jace from Texas, Eric from Iowa for joining us. I know a lot of folks have been waiting for these two guys to get together, so I'm glad we were able to pull this off. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice to meet
Thanks
you.
for having me. It's been fun.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll do it again. This having two guests on at a time is kind of fun, and I'm open to doing much more of it. So, those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.